Buffalo Bills going undefeated. And we're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's what's up.
Welcome into the Air Raid Hour, a Buffalo Fanatics video cast experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Bills Guys, and our camera is all messed up. Welcome into, I said the Bills Guys, didn't I? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Judge Mathis, and I am joined by my co-host, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. In the background, we have producer Kendall with us, and he will be joining us towards the end of the show to give us his takes, his thoughts, and work through some mock drafts with us as well. So, if you could, please, ladies and gentlemen, it would be truly appreciated if you could, and I'm pulling up the graphic right now, if you could, smash that like button, share this video cast, and if you want to become a member of the Bing Squad, head on over to jointhefanatics.com. As always, Super Chat, Superstars, we appreciate you. Super Chats jump to the top of the line. And speaking of Superstars, who do we got in the comment section tonight, Dave?
Yeah, we've got a good crew coming through so far tonight. King Thriller, Sheldon Cole, D. Handsome is back. Patrick Guerra is back. We've got Thief of Justice in the house tonight. We've got Andrew Tadros. Lone Wolf is back. Of course, Randy. And he has officially... He's no longer Coconut Pete. So that level of confusion can now go away from everyone. But Richard Forbes is in the house. D. Handsome. Like I said, Lone Wolf is in here. Andrew Tadros, Jason Humbert, Timothy Lewis, Corey Buffalo's in the house. So people are filing in. Brody Brown. So people are continuing to file in. And as you file in, hit that like button as you come in. If you like that map that Steve has behind him, very, very vintage looking. If you like that map and you like that ship he has on the next to the Yoda head, smash that like.
And the Yoda head is wearing a George Washington wig. So,
Of course, we're presented by Symbol, as you can see down there in the corner of the stock market for sports. Symbol.app/fanatics gets you a $10 bonus, deposit bonus. Go and invest on your favorite pro sports teams across all four of the major sports. And who knows, maybe now the Sabres, with that win yesterday, the arrow is pointing up. I don't know. Maybe now is the time to buy the stock in the Sabres as the arrow is pointing up. But anyway, we're presented by Symbol, of course, and you will see that graphic down in the corner for the show.
All right, so let's get right into it. The Buffalo Bills made a wave of signings since we were last on air. They added swing tackle Bobby Hart, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, Tyrell Adams, formerly of the Houston Texans, and Marquel Lee, formerly of the Oakland Raiders. Let's start with Bobby Hart, because I got some things I want to get off of my chest. Number one being, man, he fucking sucks. He is terrible. Can we?
Well, how about this? This apparently you got something else off your chest, some weight, according to Timothy
angles.
Lewis.
It's all about angles. But I have been cutting the carbs, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh man, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, you're good. You're good. But man, he's fucking terrible, right? Like, this guy's just the worst.
Let's just put it this way. 2020, let's pull up the PFF stats on him. 2020 was his highest graded season since going back to 2015. In 2016, he had a 56.3, which was 70th out of 76 qualifiers. 2017, 44.8, 78th out of 79 qualifiers. 2018, 57.1, 69th out of 80. 2019, 57.6, 66th out of 81. And then finally took that massive jump in 2020 to a 66.3, which was good enough for 49th out of 79 qualifiers. So
He's getting
yeah,
better.
he's not good. I mean,
Uh-huh.
like we don't have to pretend that he's good. And we don't have to worry about anything more than the fact that in my mind he's purely a cam body at this point. And it should not stop the Bills from looking at tackles in the draft, in my opinion.
Well, the cynic in me wants to think that Brandon Beane got his dates mixed up, and the day we signed Bobby Hart, it was actually April 1st, and Brandon Beane wanted to play a little joke on Terry Pagula by telling him he could be GM for the day, and Terry Pagula decided to go out and sign Bobby Hart, but unfortunately it wasn't April 1st, so it was an April Fool's Day joke. There's a lot of people in the comment section, and I'm with you, like, yeah, he's just a camp body, he's just this, he's just that, but it's like, a lot of the things the words that have come out of that man's mouth and the things that he has tweeted and Instagrammed, I'm just not a big fan of the culture fit. Like, don't say trust the process and then bring in a fourth string offensive tackle who literally is not at all processy. Like, what he did not end things well with the Giants. He went to Cincinnati. He was not very good, practically a turnstile there. But I understand like why they would bring him. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not an idiot. I understand why they bring him in. Good athletic profile. He's been getting hotter, I guess you can call it, as his career has progressed, if you want to be generous. Like, I understand. But, like, that's how shallow the offensive tackle market is right now. And by not getting Ty and Secchi back, and by Cody Ford being a guard now, swing tackle, we've mentioned this on the show. That was one of my biggest concerns this offseason was swing tackle. And here we are now talking about Bobby friggin' Hart.
What is Roderick Johnson on a milk carton? Like, where's my guy?
Like, those are the two names that I had. Like, those are the two names that stick out to me most that are still on the offensive tackle market. DeMar Dodson, he's getting up there, but he can be your new Ty and Secchi. And Roderick Johnson, who has not signed anywhere yet. Like, the guy has been practically invisible. So those two guys sitting on the market, if those two guys were off the market, I think I'd be less upset. Maybe they want more money and that's why they're still sitting on the market. I have no idea. But the fact that Brandon Beane pulled the trigger on Bobby Hart while those two guys were still out there, that's concerning to me.
Let me ask you this. Is Zach Banner still on the market?
No, he resigned in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I was going to say that.
LaRaven Clark was the other name. If you're going to just go for an awful tackle who's really bad, LaRaven Clark has experience under Bobby Johnson as well. He could have been just as bad in that fourth off the tackle spot. But to me, like,
here's a good question: what's up with Ladry Model? Was he that bad? Still hurt? I mean, he had a major injury, and he hasn't. I think
he's retired.
Yeah. So
I think
he's done.
And so a couple of things. And Andrew Miller's got a good comment. If you could bring that up, he says drafting up to tackle in the middle rounds. But to me, the two name got Ricky Wagner still out there. Obviously, we're not going to go for Ricky Wagner. DeMar Dodson still out there. Roderick Johnson. I think all these offensive tackles with any amount of name recognition left are waiting until after the draft to see which teams lose out on offensive tackle to sign. But this makes me even more. I've been team trade up. If we can go out and get an Owosu Koromo, we can go out and get a JC Horn, I'd be completely okay with trading up. But I'm now either trade up or trade back. I don't want to sit at 30. Like, that's the last thing I think I want to do at this point is sit at 30, because if you want to go out and get one of those stud players, fine, cool. I'm okay with that. But if you're sitting there at 30, I think between Jacksonville and Dallas, there's a couple of teams where you can flip back into the second round. You can pick up another pick in the third or the fourth round, and then you can take a swing at a tackle. Like, you can then take a tackle in the first 4 rounds of the draft, because I don't think very many of the good ones are going to be there in the 5th, but you could take one. Like, if you get a 4th round pick, you can then have the luxury of taking the offensive tackle that slips in the 4th round, or going for a guard / tackle. So those are the different things that you can do if you can trade back with that extra pick.
And then that's exactly what I did in my mock draft Monday. On Monday, I picked up that extra 4th rounder, And in the mock draft, I took Walker Little with that pick because he's a guy that can come in. He played left tackle in college, but he can be a swing tackle for you on day one as a 4th round pick, or at least at a minimum compete with Ryan Bates.
Jalen Mayfield slipping in a lot of these mock drafts. And here's the thing. Could Jalen start at guard and then eventually kick out to tackle? Like, that's something that you could consider with a Jalen Mayfield, I think. Like, I think Jalen Mayfield could come in and play right guard right away, compete for that right guard job right away, and then in 2-3 years, he could kick out to right tackle. So I think Jalen Mayfield should come back into the conversation because he sort of went away over the course of the last couple of months or so with Tyrell Williams re-signing.
Makes me happy to hear you say that. To be on the Jalen Mayfield. Scott comes in with a super chat here. I just got to tell you guys, I don't like the name of the new stadium. They should have stuck with New Era Field. I don't know what they were thinking. It's money, man. Money. And that's pretty much what it comes down to for all of these things.
Yeah.
They ended the agreement with New Era. They obviously were looking for something that optically looked good, I think, from a community standpoint, which I think they sort of achieved, I guess. And then the money, right? I mean, I don't know that the details are out yet. I don't know that we ever will find that out, but that's really what it comes down to in this situation. And we can all just still call it the Ralph. That's fine.
Yeah, and we're all just going to call it Rich Stadium or the Ralph anyway. It doesn't really matter. I don't think I ever called it Bill Stadium. I did like New Era. I mean, that was just such a great name for a stadium, though.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
That company has been like going down the toilet for the last couple of years, but
it kind of does.
But that was such a sweet name. Like, I think it was the same year Rex Ryan took over, right? So like everyone like felt really good about Rex because we thought we finally had a legitimate head coach, and then we had a new football field name. It's like a New Era Bills. We landed a good coach.
Was it that long ago? I didn't know that it happened.
It could have been. It might have been our first playoff year. I just remember when we first did it, I thought it was a great name for the stadium because I finally thought we were turning the page of the franchise. But
2016 to 2020, so it was his last year.
Last year. Oh, I don't know what the hell I was thinking then because Rex sucked by then. Like we all knew he sucked by then.
Yes. And it was a New Era firing him and bringing.
Yeah, just letting him go. All right. The other two signings were Tyrell Adams and Marquel Lee. And listen, it only took 2 years, Dave. But Brandon Bean finally listened to something we had to say. I think it was maybe our third podcast. Like legitimately like our third podcast back in the day when we were still using our cell phones on Anchor. And this was 2 years ago. And we were like, you know what? The Bills should go out and sign a bunch of like low-end linebackers because the linebacker depth on this team is not great. Like the names after the starters do not impress me. The Buffalo Bills should go out and just retool the depth of that roster. And it took them 3 years, but they finally 3 years, but they finally did it. So now behind AJ Klein, Tremaine Edmonds, and Matt Milano, we have Tyrell Dodson, who we're going to get to in a second. Buffalo Fanatics just tweeted. I believe that was Kendall asking about the confidence Tyrell Dodson. Andre Smith's got some competition. Tyler Matakevich is not a lock. So we saw last year, this football team got very, very dinged up. Very, very dinged up at linebacker. And they had to pick up Deron Lee off the street. Never felt comfortable getting him into the starting lineup. It was Tyrell Dodson for a while. It was Andre Smith for a while. It was a mess. So I think it's about time this team addressed some of the depth at linebacker. And these are two really quality bargain bin signings. And a guy, Marquel Lee, coming off 2 years of injury after a promising rookie year. And a guy in Tyrell Adams, who was 12th in the league in tackles last year?
Yeah, and I mean, Tyrell Adams last year was the first time he played really any meaningful snaps. You look at his snap count percentages going back to his time in Oakland, he played 0% 2016. I believe it was, he played 6 games. He played special teams. 10% defense. I'm talking about defensive snaps here. 10%, then 0, then 10% in Houston. Then finally last year, he got on the field for 812 snaps, played 73% of their snaps. Now, that was a lot due to injury, and let's not forget that Houston's defense was quite bad, but he did have some moments, and it's a good, it's one of those good depth signings that we've been kind of talking about. Like, it seemed like just yesterday we were talking about, like, what do we do with Julian Stanford or what's going to happen with Voshawn Joseph, right? And, like, those guys are out of the picture now, and so you bring in veterans like an Adams now, who is more of an inside backer type of guy. But he's played special teams his entire career. He's played 81 special team snaps his first year, 118, 77, 62, and he still played 122 special team snaps last year. So I think for me, what this is signifying is, we talked about turning over the depth at the bottom of the linebacker group, but I think Sean McDermott's finally saying to himself, depth's great. And like my primary focus maybe before was like, I need a linebacker that can play special teams and that's all I care about. Now he may be looking at it as like, I need a linebacker that could possibly help me on defense and also play special teams. So he's like, he's getting a little bit more bang for his buck, if you will, for that roster spot. And it's just going to create competition at the bottom of that position group. So by no means am I saying all these guys are going to make the team. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying is you're going to find the guy that's the best special teamer and who's going to help you the best on defense. And that's the guy that's going to make the team, one or two of these guys. So Scott comes in and says, so many free agents that we got, you think we'll have more flexibility in the draft right now. As we look at it, we got 4 or 5 running backs on the roster. I think we just signed our 3rd linebacker for the defense. Yeah. And that's what we're kind of talking about. Like linebacker was one of those things we kind of like in some of the mocks we looked at and some we didn't. Obviously when Milano signing back, we kind of deprioritized it, but we were still looking at guys like Tony Fields and the like sort of later in the draft. But now, if you're the Bills and you have these vets, like, does it do you any good to even waste a draft pick on a linebacker at this point? Probably not, because if you draft a linebacker, it's likely going to be somebody late, and that person's going to be competing against these vets that you just signed to make the roster. So that's my philosophy on it. But overall flexibility, yes, it does give you, Scott. I agree.
And Scott makes a great point about, how we're so deep. So my thought when I read Scott's thing was immediately like, where are we shallow? Cornerback, it's what? It's Tehran, it's Saran, it's Cam Lewis, it's Levi, it's Dane Jackson. There's not a lot of depth there. They have Josh Thomas, safety between Jaquan and Josh Thomas. They brought in Sean Davis for a visit, never signed Sean Davis. I think it was Bruce Nolan on Twitter today said, "Oh, is it D Marlowe time again?" Sean Davis signed in Indy. Is it time for D Marlowe again?
Well, that's why I've been looking at safeties more in the draft recently. And like now safety to me kind of like the longer Dean Marlowe doesn't re-sign back, then the more I'm kind of looking at a safety potentially in the draft as well.
Yeah. Patrick says tackle, like thinking about tight end, shallow, offensive tackle. It's Bobby Hart. It is,
it's shallow, man. We can say it. It's shallow.
Yeah, it's why am I blanking on the guy's name? Adams.
Ryan Bates.
Ryan Bates.
Trey Adams. Yeah.
Trey Adams. There we go.
Like there's some guys there, but like you don't feel good after the starters. Like it's just starters. Like so, I don't feel great.
And then guard, it's like Cody Ford, Ike Bucker. It's going to be one of those two guys. You have Jordan Devy, and I guess you could probably also throw Ryan Bates in there. Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to read the, did I miss someone?
Feliciano.
Oh, yeah, but I consider him almost a starter. And unless we draft someone. Yeah, like the more I think about it, tight end, offensive line, DB, like those are the 3 that stick out the most to me. So maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction, but we did talk about DBs last show. So I think next week we'll definitely have to bring up tight end. We'll definitely have to bring up offensive line depth, but the focus today is going to be on the defensive side of the football. And I actually want to add a name in today because a couple of people have mentioned Zaven Collins in the comment section. So we didn't have Zaven Collins on our list because we're going to talk about edge rushers and defensive ends today. But I almost feel like we should throw Zaven Collins into the conversation because I feel like if we drafted Zaven Collins, it would be to fill at least some semblance of a pass rush role, even though he can do way more. I think a little bit of pass rush role would be, Zaven Collins. So let's get this thing started. So, I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm going to be super pissed if we pick at 30. I either want us trading up for a stud or I want us trading back and collecting some picks. But if we do stay the course at 30, these are the names that I have on my list. Kwity Paye, Jalen Phillips, Azeez Ojulari, and I guess I will throw I'm not going to throw Zaven Collins in yet. But Kwity, Jalen, and Azeez. Kwity has kind of been falling down some draft boards recently on multiple websites. Defensive end in general has been falling down draft boards on multiple websites. Jalen Phillips seems to be the only guy who's rising right now. What are you?
Ojolari is kind of gone up a little bit
Mhm.
as well, but yeah, like Paye and Rousseau have dropped. Guys like that have dropped.
Mhm.
Sorry, you were gonna ask me a question.
No, I was just looking at the. We got a super chat in here from Scott. He says, if I'm going to send somebody, it's going to be a safety or a cornerback from Florida State. I believe he means Hamza and Samuel, maybe. Those guys are both definitely on our radar. I know on Monday's show we talked about Samuel. Like, I would be fine with Samuel at 30, but I definitely think I'd rather trade back and get Samuel in the 40s and pick up that extra pick, and then maybe you can get yourself a tight end and Hamza. You can double down and get Hamza and Asante with that extra pick. So, yeah. So I'm with you. Big fan of both those Florida State guys.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what you were saying,
Mhm.
you know, I like Aziz. I don't know about the fit for him. So for me, like at 30, it's really Quiddy and Phillips. Like that's pretty much
Mhm.
it. And like if Aziz is there and the Bills feel like they can do something with him, even though like he's not like the prototypical type of player that would really fit
Mhm.
in our scheme, if they feel like he's a guy that they can bring in and have him like bulk up a little bit, because like he's only 240 pounds. Like he's not even like in the 250 range to where you feel like, okay, he could be like a Jerry Hughes type. Like he really would have to, you know, either bulk up a little or he'd be a specialized pass rusher. So for me, it's Quiddy and Jalen Phillips if you're standing pat at 30. And that's pretty much it for me as far as like if you want to call it first round or standing pat at 30. Like those two guys I'd be okay with. You know, Quiddy, according to like he's SIS's number one in pressures per game, according to SIS in 2020, 7.3 pressures per game. So while he doesn't have the sack numbers, you know, we talk about pressures a lot. He's the highest there. So
What's his size, speed, or I'm sorry, what's his height, weight for Quiddy? His exact height, weight.
I have him well, TDN has him at 6'4", 277. SIS has him at what does SIS have him at? They have, well, for one, they have him as their number 3 overall edge. So
Yeah, I think
that's they have him at 6'3", 272. So
yeah, I think that's around the size of a defensive end that the Buffalo Bills might be looking for. But who knows? After they asked AJ Epinesa to drop so much weight, maybe Sean McDermott's idea of what a defensive end should look like. But to me, of all those three guys, Jalen, Quiddy, and Aziz, I think that Quiddy is the most Bills like, the most 4-3 like. But he's the kind of guy who would come in here and be. I think Quiddy is going to be a really solid defensive end in the National Football League. But if you think he's going to be a double-digit sack guy, I don't know. I think he's going to be a very solid defensive end in this league.
He's only had 11 and a half sacks in 4 seasons. So the sack numbers are not there, but the pressure numbers are. So
the pressure numbers are there. I think he'll be a guy who can push double digits, but I don't think he'll ever be a guy to get to double digits. So I think that's probably why he's slipping at this point, and I think that's why I wouldn't hate it at 30. Andrew Miller speaks about trading back, which is something that like we're really keen on. I think tonight in our mock draft, I want to try to trade back to see if we can get 4 picks in those first 3 rounds. But he says trading back with the Bengals makes a bunch of sense. The Bengals can come up to take an offensive tackle ahead of the Chiefs or Marshall from LSU, depending on what they do at 5. Yeah, because they could take Penny Sewell at 5, or they could take Jamar Chase at 5. And depending on what that is, they can do the opposite. So, yeah, that's one I haven't even thought of, Andrew. My concern is how desperate would be the Bengals be to move up, because they're closer to us being at the top half of the second round. So would we get a 4th from them? Would we get a 5th from them?
They're pick 38. So let me just pull up the scale. While you're talking, I have the trade value chart up here, so you can keep going, and I'll tell you kind of what it would take, or what we would get, I should say. So yeah, go ahead.
But it's just we mentioned a couple of other trades as well. Jacksonville, I think, makes sense. There are rumors and rumblings that Jacksonville wants to get back into the first round, and I'm really keen on the Cowboys at 44. I really think the Cowboys, just like the Bengals, the Cowboys want to have a solid twofer. The Bengals want to go probably tackle receiver. I think the Cowboys want to go corner edge. So I think cornerback and edge are going to be the top two priorities for the Dallas Cowboys. So Randy says 4th round for 8 spots sounds fair. I think so too. I wouldn't take anything less than 4th rounder.
Yeah, so the 4th round trade value chart. So the 38th pick, according to the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart's worth 520. The 111 pick overall, which is their first pick in the 4th round, is worth 72. So that puts you at 592. And the Bills pick at 30 is worth 620. So the Bills will be losing a little bit there, but the 3rd round pick puts it way over. So it's like really, it's going to be like it'd be like maybe throw in a 7th or something. Like you could maybe get something like that. But 2nd and a 4th is the minimum you would have to get for that.
What would it be? What would it be? A 1st, swap 3rds, and a 4th?
Okay, so if you swap 3rds, their 3rd is worth 245. Our 3rd is worth 128. So that's a little under 100, right? So, or that's a little over 100. Should say it's about 110. So that would put it actually over in our favor, which they probably wouldn't do.
Yeah, maybe 1st, swap 3rds, and another 5th, and then you could use those 5th as ammunition to get back up in the 4th. There's a whole bunch of different things you could do.
I mean, you'd have 3 5ths at that point. Now they have the 5th pick in the 5th round, which is actually worth 30 points. So you add that to the 72 of the 4th rounder and the 520. That actually gets you to 622, which is only 2 points different than pick number 30. So you could maybe get their 2nd, 4th, and 5th in that deal potentially.
Yeah,
well, like you said, then you can use all those 5ths potentially to move back up if you want to try to move back up. So
yeah, we definitely got to get 3 to 4 impact players, semi-impact players, and I really do think I could care less if we. Yeah,
I mean, I agree with Randy here, but at least it's like a baseline for us to kind of get an idea of what's fair. So while I don't disagree that it's not totally accurate, because teams are gonna generally probably overpay to move up in drafts. That's probably just the reality of the situation. It's at least worth looking at.
But it is interesting too, because Brandon Beane has said in interviews before, "Oh, the trade chart." But the question is, what trade chart is he referring to? There are some people out there who think that a lot of NFL executives now use the Bill Belichick trade chart, which can be found at Pat's Pulpit. It's sort of like a play off of the Jimmy Johnson. I think Draft Tracker. I think Dean's website has it as well. So yeah, that's something.
Randy's saying do it or don't do it. I don't know what he's saying, because you're only moving down 8 spots to pick up a 4th and a 5th. Like, I can't tell. So, he's saying do it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
And then Scott's coming into the super chat. He says NFL Network just came out with a recent mock draft. They have Buffalo taking running back at 30, taking Clemson running back at 30. Travis Etienne. Well, that will make Marcel Louis-Jacques happy. That'll make Nick Geary happy, and that will make us very, very sad.
Happy.
Good thing Bobby's not in here right now. Bobby would be. Can we tell this story? So we get a text from Casey Reed at about 4:00 today. He was livid. So Bobby works the Instagram, and Bobby does a really good job doing that, and he makes graphics. And Bobby made a graphic today about players not to touch in the draft, and he had 3 images on it, and it was Caleb Farley because of the spinal injury. Who is the Travis Etienne because of running back at 30,
and Phillips,
Jalen Phillips, and Casey lost his mind. So I'm putting Casey. Casey put me on blast on his podcast with Nap the other day, so I'm gonna put him on blast. So Bobby and Casey can have at it in the BF family chat now that I've just exposed him. But he was not happy. He was not pleased.
Well, Casey's been a Jalen Phillips fan for longer than almost anyone, so I will give him credit for that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he saw that and he was like, "Who the hell did this?"
I want to be like, it was me.
Oh man.
But let's talk about a couple of guys who I have as first, second round tweeners, and I want to get your thoughts on whether we should risk it for that biscuit, because these guys are both. Yep. These guys are both players with really high ceilings, but can also just be the next Aaron Maben. And one of them is Jason Away, obviously from Penn State, the absolute freak 40. The guy's a freak athlete. His bend is insane. And the other is Gregory Rousseau, Jalen Phillips' tag team. Well, I shouldn't even say tag team partner there in Miami because he opted out. They never played together. But Gregory Rousseau and Jason Away. What are your thoughts on those two?
Well, Rousseau is a better fit. schematically, I think, just based on his size. But I think if you're going for upside,
Mhm.
well, I should take this back because both of them have really good upside. We obviously know Rousseau had the huge 2019 season where he had 15 and a half sacks, didn't play in 2020. You got limited knowledge to go on with Rousseau because he really doesn't have a lot on tape and he doesn't have a lot of experience. Oa, on the other hand, is more in the body type, really, of like a. I mean, he is big enough to play 4-3 end, and he did play it with his hand in the dirt at Penn State. But it worries you because he's a little light, right? He's only in the 250s, and I know it's worked for Jerry Hughes. Production, at least statistically, wasn't there in college. He has a great get off of the ball. He's got the speed. Obviously, we know he's a physical freak. But you have to be really confident that you can turn that into production in the NFL, because what you can't have is for that guy to come into your team and then not produce. Like, we've gotten away with sort of not having the sack numbers from Hughes because of the pressures and his past production in sacks in prior systems. Like, he's got some equity built up, but if you go for a guy like Oa and he doesn't produce, you're going to really be under the gun. And Rousseau, like I said, I mean, from a fit standpoint, he's probably more of a fit because he's a little bit bigger guy. He's got the length. He's 6'5", 260. And he had that one amazing season. Both guys really scream to me are like potential guys. So like Kendall said, at the end of the last show, if you're looking at two guys that are like ceiling type guys that maybe aren't getting picked higher because they just haven't put the production on the field consistently in college, I think those are both options for you, like in the second round, right? I don't think, to me, they're first round guys, but they could be options for you in the second round. And if I had to pick one or the other, I'd probably take my chance with Oa and hope that he can just bulk up slightly just because of how much of a physical freak he is. Like, if I was going to have to rank the two against each other.
I just see some of the plays that Jason Owa makes, and I'm just like, it's insane. Like, if Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott think that they can channel him into something, by all means, take the guy at 30. Because the guy, from everything I've heard, from the things that I've read from various different scouts and stuff, I can't say the names, but it's on paper on websites. It's not chatter that I'm hearing from actual websites, from actual scouts and stuff who are willing to put their name on the paper. The guy is just so far behind developmentally, from a coaching stuff. So if the Buffalo Bills feel like they can come in and they can get him up to speed fairly quickly, or they feel like within a couple of years he can be the guy's a top 5 talent athletically, top 5 talent in this entire draft.
And SIS has both Oa and Rousseau as 6.7s. They do have Rousseau as number 5 and Oa as number 7.
My question to you is this: would you rather take Jason Oa or Gregory Rousseau, or would you rather go for a guy who's more of a pure more of a linebacker in Zaven Collins? So if you had your choice between Oa and Collins, where are you leaning in that regard?
Man, that's tough because production-wise, you can't say that Oa was better at you can say he's a better pass rusher than Collins, but production-wise, it wasn't necessarily there. I think for me, look, I'm taking Collins. Like, if it's me, I'm taking Collins because I just think you can do more with him. You can have him rush the pass, or you can have him play coverage. Like, to me, there's just more you can do with a Collins, even though maybe like from a pure edge rushing standpoint, he's not the natural rusher that an Oa is. The fact of the matter is Oa didn't get, he didn't have the numbers in college. It's not like he was like a 10 sack guy. And I know sacks aren't everything, but let's be real. Like, we need to get to the quarterback more in 2021. So while I'm kind of contradicting myself because the pure rusher probably is the better option, I think for the long term of the team, a Collins is probably the route I would go in that case.
Now, speaking of edge rushers or defensive ends, you have your pure guys in guys like Quiddy, guys like Rousseau. But the Bills have had their eyes on some guys where it's like, are they 34 guys or are they 43
Right.
guys?
It's
And
weird. It's weird.
the next two guys on my list are guys that we've had conversations about. We had a great conversation with John Todd from SIS about this as well. And that's Joseph Asai or Joe Tryon. I think the Bills lean Tryon, but I think I prefer away. What are your thoughts on this? And Rico, you missed the story earlier about Bobby likes Rousseau over Phillips. Somebody mentioned Jalen Phillips earlier. We had to share the story today. Bobby made a graphic on Instagram, pretty much just smacking on Jalen Phillips, saying the Bills shouldn't touch him because of his injury history. And Casey sent us a screenshot of it, and he was like, "Who posted this?" He was really mad. So yeah, Bobby, he's usually pretty right with some of these guys. He was on that Chase Claypool train early last year, and Claypool blew up. But Osai or Tryon? I prefer Osai. I think the Bills prefer Tryon. What are your thoughts?
I'm with you. I prefer Osai. The Bills prefer Tryon. I just think I've come around a little bit on Osai, right? Been Nurkic Award semifinalist, All Big 12, first team, All Big 12 honorable mention for Defensive Player of the Year in 2020, 30 tackles for loss in his career, 11 and a half sacks. He can play, like, to me, he's a little bit more of a complete player as far as if you wanted to use him as a rusher and as like a linebacker, I guess. Whereas Tryon to me just feels more like a rusher to me. I don't know that what you're going to get from him from a coverage standpoint. For what it's worth, SIS does have Tryon ranked over Osai. They have Tryon ranked 10 and Osai ranked 14th, but they do have them both scored at 6.5, so they have them right kind of in that next tier. I would prefer Osai, and I also think that if you kind of read between the lines, it's not necessarily like, I mean, you're right. The Bills do seem enamored with Tryon, but Dan Morgan was at that Texas Pro Day with his eyes on Osai from, what we're kind of gleaning. So to me, I guess if it came to draft day and both of those options were on the board and the Bills did go Tryon, I'd be a little disappointed, but kind of came back, kind of gives me flashbacks of that draft when we drafted Maben over Arakpo, and I was like, why did we not draft Arakpo? And we drafted Aaron Maben. So like it's not like the first round, obviously, but I kind of would have that same type of feeling. Like Osai to me seems like he's going to have a role in the NFL, and I think he's going to be a productive player in the NFL. So I prefer Osai over Tryon.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And I think both guys would be utilized in the same way early on. I think you'd both see them, take some pseudo standing, reps and play that like strong side backer. I think that you would see them utilized in that role. And I think you'd see them early on using that role and then later on groomed behind Jerry Hughes to develop into that rushing right end. So I think the Buffalo Bills in drafting them maybe wouldn't have their traditional spot available right away, but would definitely have a role in mind for them early in this defense. And that brings into the next guy into the conversation. That's Ronnie Perkins. I think Ronnie Perkins is another guy who falls into this sort of, does he fit the mold of a defensive end the Buffalo Bills want? Is he maybe too much of a wide nine guy? He can't get his hands dirty going a little bit more in towards the tackle. And I don't think he has that strong side linebacker flex that like a Joseph Asai or a Joe Tryon would, and that obviously as Zaven Collins has. You had Randy Perkins going to the Bills in a mock draft previous. If you had to choose between Osai, Tryon, and Perkins, where does your mind then go?
I'll probably still take Osai in that case. I mean, I have Perkins more as a third round guy, at least from my perspective, and I do have Osai and Tryon more as second round guys. It's funny to me because I started like kind of figuring out like the round grades I was putting on guys, and it was like, okay, I had a couple first round guys. They were like traditional sort of 4.3 sizes in like Phillips and Quiddy. And then the second round were like the high upside ceiling guys who didn't have a lot of like tape, but were like 4.3 guys in Rousseau, and an OA, if you want to consider him a 4.3. And then like the second round, the rest of it was like 3-4 guys. It was like Osai Rashad, who we haven't talked about, Tryon. And then it was like once you got to the third round, it was like, okay, then Perkins and the Basham started kind of popping up, like the more prototypical 4-3 guys. But in that case, I would still take Osai over Perkins because I just think the value for Perkins to me is more of the third round than he is the second round.
And Kendall's coming in here. Producer Kendall's coming in, so I want to bring him onto the screen. Hope this is all right, Kendall. You say you prefer Joe Tryon.
Yeah, I was hoping you would bring me on.
Why do you prefer Tryon over Osai?
So personally, the one thing I would take Osai over Tryon is his motor. He never quits. He seems like a process guy. He seems like someone McDermott would love. Obviously, the issue is the 3-4 versus 4-3 thing. I see a lot of shades to Jerry Hughes when I watch Osai, but when I see Tryon, I don't see a 3-4 outside linebacker. I see someone that can stand up in a 2-point stance. I see someone that can get down in a 3-point stance and rush the passer around the edge and with that inside move. He loves going speed to power. He's 6'5", 260 pounds. So he has length, he has size, he has that prototypical, like if you look at the RAS scores, the relative athletic score, he's like right in that median, like just above that median area for the size. So he could be like that prototypical size edge rusher. But I think his hand use is really good. He's really violent with his hands. He has a good first step. And just the way he sets up that speed to power move, PFF thinks that he's a bull in a china shop. That's their verbatim what they said about him. I think he does get a little bit too dependent on his power move, but he just loves to use that momentum from his natural speed, turn it into power. And if that tackle oversteps to the edge and he thinks that Tryon's trying to go wide on him, he just jukes right in front of his face, swims over him, and goes inside, gets a clear path to the quarterback. I think it's a toss-up. Like, you could go either way. Both of them, I think McDermott can make them fit on this defense. Personally, I just think Tryon has it all, in my opinion. I don't think there's an issue with
Well, let me ask you this, Kendall.
Tryon fitting.
Would you take Tryon at 30?
I don't think I would take Tryon at 30. I don't. That's where I think this argument is. I think we said Perkins, Osai, and Tryon. I think all three are those three prospects are prospects that I would really be interested in at 61 or trading up in the second round, depending on how the board shakes out in the draft. But those three guys, if we don't go edge in the first round, those are huge value picks to me. I think they could fit this defense, and we know Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison are going to be gone from this team next year. I mean, we don't know if they're going to re-sign Jerry Hughes, but we're going to need to get younger on the edge. Like, why not invest somewhat early? It doesn't have to be round one, but if it's not round one, it should be round two, because we need a future edge rusher next to Epinesa if he can continue to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's the number one important thing is finding a young edge to complement AJ Epinesa. So you have those two young guys moving forward, because even if one of them isn't a starter, you'd still want them both to be part of that heavy rotation. But you mentioned, the PFF lingo, and that's the lingo that I've heard a lot of too with Tryon, bull in a china shop. And that's what scares me. I feel like, does Sean McDermott see Tryon and think like, I can turn him into a technician? Or, that's my biggest concern is what if he doesn't turn into a technician? Is he a good enough athlete to overcome his lack of being a true technician?
I think his relative athletic score is, I know Ryan did his whole podcast on this on the 585 report. And I think it's a bit of a signifier, looking at the RAS score. But it's not everything, of course. But because he scored so high, Tryon did. What did he score? He scored a 9.43 out of 10. So that tells you he has the athleticism to overcome some deficiencies he might have in technical ability. But I think his hand use is what's primarily going to attract McDermott.
Yeah, that's and this really is the thing that scares me about him. Like, I'm looking at these SIS charts, right? Pressures per game, tackles for loss per game, sacks per game. They have the top 10 guys in all these charts. He's not in any single one of these charts.
Yeah, and of course that's concerning. Yeah.
That concerns me that he's not even like showing up in any of these charts. I mean, I know it's just metrics, but like you would have thought if he was like getting to the quarterback or even like pressuring the quarterback, like he'd at least pop up in one of these top 10 lists, and he's not there. That does concern me. Meanwhile, like a guy like Osai, on the other hand, he's second in the entire grouping for tackles for TFL per game.
And that's exactly where I think Osai's motor really comes to show in his stats, because he is always next to the ball. He rallies to the football as much as anyone I've watched this year. He loves getting in on the tackle. So I think that's why Osai is a little bit more of a stat sheet stuffer than Tryon is. But I wouldn't say don't like completely rule out Tryon because he's not stuffing the stat sheets.
No, I mean, we're gonna pick him. I already know it. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, I already know it's gonna happen.
Matt Perino seems pretty convinced that the Buffalo Bills are going to take Levi O, their 3-technique defensive tackle. So wouldn't it be
why though? Like,
I don't get that either.
Wouldn't it be such a Buffalo thing to go and take the 3-tech, the guy who also underwhelmed extremely at the Senior Bowl? Yeah. That would be such a Buffalo thing. But Buffalo, they have themselves they've taken quite the shine to the University of Washington, because Elijah Molden, Joe Tryon, and Levi O have all had virtual meetings with the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo Bills have shown a liking to what Jimmy Lake has done out there with that defense out in the old Washington State. I have no idea what city they play in. I was going to say the city, and then I realized I had no idea what the city
I'm going to guess Spokane. I don't know,
yes,
but I'm guessing Spokane.
It is Spokane. I think they play one game a year in the Seahawks Stadium, and they have a really nice, beautiful stadium in Spokane. So thank you, Kendall. We'll bring you back on in a little bit. Appreciate you for joining us and giving us your thoughts on Joe Tryon here real quick. All right. So here's the next two players I want to talk about, and then we'll bring in two more players into this conversation. And these two players are guys that I really like, and guys that I think one of them was the love child of Bills Mafia for the longest time, and it sort of went away over time as these other names and visits started to pop up. Names like Joseph Asai, Joe Tryon, Jalen Phillips. And a guy who has been rising up draft boards, and I think is going to go a lot higher than people expect, Carlos Boogie Basham, and Janarius Robinson. I love Boogie's game. I think Boogie, I would put a first round grade on Boogie. I really like Boogie. I just have this feeling that the Buffalo Bills don't really care about Boogie. What do you think, Dave?
It doesn't seem like they do, but I feel like he's a fit. He seems like he's like that prototypical sort of 4-3 defensive end size that you want. 6'3", maybe he's a little short, 280 though, 270, 280. Super productive in college, 15 sacks in 19 games played over the last 2 years, 33.5 tackles for loss since his sophomore year. Obviously chased around a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC over his years, including Trevor Lawrence. SIS has him rated as the number 8 overall edge. To me, he's a great fit. The only thing, like you said, the Bills might not be looking at him because now the more we kind of read the tea leaves, it seems like the Bills want the Jerry Hughes mold type of an edge guy than they do like an AJ Epinesa type size. I'm talking about when he was in college. And Basham, to me, at least from a collegiate standpoint, size-wise, looks more like the AJ Epinesa type, more of the power guy. And it seems like the Bills maybe are going the other direction with it. But he's still very high on my list. I really think whoever drafts him is going to get a really solid player. He may not be super productive as a rookie, but Wake, they've kind of turned the corner. They went through that period where they were, pretty good. Then they kind of fell off. If you remember, they were in the Orange Bowl several years back. They kind of fell off, but now they're kind of coming back, and the program's kind of coming back a little bit. And so Basham to me is a guy I'd almost be comfortable with taking in the second round, honestly, if I had to. But third round for sure. So for me, yes on him. And Janarius Robinson, I'd say I like Basham a little more than Robinson. Again, Robinson's production numbers weren't great. Like his box score numbers weren't great over his 4 years, only 8 career sacks. But physically, man, that guy is a monster. So again, if you feel like, and this dude is like 4-3 end body, like all the way.
Mhm.
He's like 6'5", 265, 270. He's freak. I mean, he's like, I remember a play this past season against my sad Wolfpack where he just absolutely destroyed Hawkman. I mean, it was like, how is that guy getting up after that? I mean, he brings it. He will bring the heat. He will pack that quarterback. He will hit that quarterback. And so physically, Robinson to me is there with Batcham, and it's just that again,
Yeah.
he didn't necessarily have the production.
Yeah, I mean, Randy says Basham is being underrated. He's going to be a really good pro. I agree. Here's my one hope for Boogie Basham. I hope he gets drafted by a 43 team. I want him to be drafted by a 43 team. So many people are like, this dude's a 3-4, this dude's a 3-4, this dude's a 3-4. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I just don't understand. And then he went and he blew up his pro day, and he showed that he is a good enough athlete to be a 43 guy. So to me, I am on the Boogie train. I would pull the trigger on Boogie at 30 because I have a first round grade on Boogie. I think he's a really good football player.
Well, let me ask you this: who are the best ends production wise in the NFL? 4-3 ends. They're the guys that are big, and they're the guys that actually are a little bit on the heavier side, if you will, but they're just freak athletes. You talk about the Bosas, you talk about JJ Watts, like those are big dudes. Myles Garrett, like that's a great example. Like these guys are all 4-3 ends, and they're massive dudes. They're not playing 3-4 end. They're playing 4-3 end. So to me, I'm with you. I think he's 4-3 end, and I hope a 4-3 team drafts him too.
Yeah. And as far as Janarius Robinson goes, when it comes to defensive ends, I'm a little bit of a conservative when it comes to drafting defensive ends. Like guys like away that we were talking about earlier, like they scare the hell out of me. A guy like Janarius Robinson is a guy who's a really great athlete, who's really good at setting the edge and being a run defender. You know when you draft Janarius Robinson that he is going to be he's at like his floor is like 3 to 5 sacks a year, sets the edge, like Shaq Lawson type of.
I was going to say you just described Shaq Lawson to me.
But he's got the ceiling to be more if you can coach him up. I think Shaq never reached his ceiling. Shaq just was what he was, and he never met his ceiling. But to me, a guy like Robinson is a guy you can take and hope maybe this one hits his ceiling. And when you got a guy who's such a good run defender, but also has the physical traits to become a good pass rusher, if you can mold him the proper way. And I think the Buffalo Bills have a lot of confidence in Eric Washington, their defensive line coach, a guy who came from Carolina, a guy who's been a defensive coordinator before. I think there's a lot of confidence in him. I would be ecstatic. I wouldn't mind Janarius Robinson at 61. I wouldn't mind him. So Randy says Shaq Lawson hit his ceiling. We saw it. I thought Shaq Lawson could have been more. I thought he could have been more. So, but that's just me. I was always a big Shaq fan. When we drafted him, I was
a fan.
I was ecstatic, but also like, does he fit? Because we had Rex Ryan here. So I was like, this is awesome. I love the player, but I was also like, what the fuck? Like, where's he going to play? So because obviously he could play that 34 edge, but that wasn't.
Rex had the affinity to Clemson, so.
But that was never Rex's vibe to like have that type of it's whatever. It's in the past. I always thought Shaq Lawson was a 43 guy. I think Houston's going to a 43 this year, so I'm pretty pumped to see him back in a 43. All the best to Shaq Lawson. Love that dude. But
yep.
All right. Third round, there's a couple of names. One of them you're a pretty big fan of, and that's Peyton Turner from Houston.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Peyton Turner?
Well, yeah, Peyton Turner, didn't necessarily grade out well from SIS. They have him as their 21st rated player, but it's interesting because he pops up on a lot of these charts. 23.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 career sacks. But in 2020, he had 10.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks in only 5 games. He's got the size. He's got the length. He's going to need some refinement on technique. And he did play hand in the dirt at Houston. So there's some people who are like, well, is he actually more of a 3-4 outside linebacker? I don't see it. He'll need to work on, his lower body strength and things like that. But per SIS, highest tackle for loss rate per game of any edge in this class, 2.1 per game. Highest sack rate percentage, which is basically your sack rate per plays that you play, 5.4%. And he's got good hands and he's strong. So as a guy that you're wondering, well, if you're just telling me all these great things, why isn't he rated higher? It's because of his lower body strength, and it's because of his somewhat of his burst around the burst off the line isn't super great, but it's good enough in my opinion. So for a guy that you're looking at in the third round, seems like a pretty good value to me, especially because you've gone to the well once on that Houston defensive line with Oliver, and it's worked out. Why not go to it again?
Yeah, I will say this. Like, no offense to Peyton Turner, because he does have a lot of upside. If he is the edge that the Buffalo Bills end up with, I'm going to be a little disappointed. I'd rather have some of those guys ahead of him on that list, but I guess it's not a terrible consolation prize if we wait that long to grab an edge. And I guess you should also think to yourself, if we take that long to grab an edge, it's because we probably got some pretty good value with our first two picks. I want you to tell me what SIS thinks about Jordan Smith from UAB. And while you're looking that up, I want to give a quick little shout out to Ombre Lob. He's been out for a couple of weeks. He's back in the house. He says over here, I just put his comment on the board. There we go. I think we're going to trade up for Asante Samuel or JC. I got some bad news for you, Ombre. I don't think we have a shot in hell at JC Horn after his pro day. I think he's a bona fide, with Caleb Farley slipping with the spinal and JC Horn's pro day. I think you could see JC Horn be a top 10 pick or at least a top 15 pick. JC Horn's going high, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first corner off the board. Asante Samuel Jr., I'm with you. We're both big Asante Samuel Jr. fans here. I don't think you're going to have to trade up for him. I do not think he's a guy you're going to have to trade up for. He'll be there at 30. He's a guy you could probably even snag if you trade up in the second round.
Yep.
So don't worry about that. And speaking of trading up, Dave Myers from Built in Buffalo in the house, he mentioned up there earlier in the comments section, he wants the Bills to trade up. Who do you want the Bills to trade up for, Dave? Let us know, because we're JC Horn guys, and he'll never be there, and we're Owosu Koromoa guys. So those are the two guys we'd be willing to trade up for. But what does SAS say about Jordan Smith? Because he's a freak athlete, am I right?
He's a freak. They have him ranked 26th. They have him as a 5.9. For their 5.9, that they consider that a top backup, quality special teamer. They say Smith profiles as an intriguing, lengthy mismatch off the edge, but his rigidity and lack of stoutness could keep him from reaching his potential. Projects as a reserve edge defender with compelling ceiling, ideally in a wide 9 or stand-up role. He lacks versatility to bump inside. You can't teach his length, but until he proves his play strength and raw technique as a pass rusher, he should be a sufficient special teamer. And then the other two quick notes I had on him were this. He did have the second highest. Oops. He did show up in one of these lists somewhere. I'll have to find it. But second highest pressure share on his team in 2020, which means at UAB he was generating basically a third of the pressure that entire team was generating on average, 32%. The only person higher than him was Tehran Jackson, who we're going to talk about later, was at 33%. But I mean, look, I like Jordan Smith. If you look at it, he was a stat sheet stuffer in only 2 seasons, 23.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks in 2 years. For me, I found it tough to project what his position was. Like, I wasn't going to peg him as a 3-4 linebacker. That's eventually where I ended up and where I landed. But if he does improve some of those things like his play strength, then he does have the length, in theory, to fit the bill as a 4-3 end. So it was very difficult for me to kind of nail down like a position for him. So that's kind of how I came up with it.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Daryl Johnson a little bit. So I think we might already have a player of that nature. So I don't know if the Bills would really be interested in him, although he was at the Senior Bowl. We got Brooke coming in the suit chat. I always appreciate it, Brooke. She says, I know you're not talking about the Sabres. but the New York Rangers lead 2-1 after shoving our goalie down onto his face and basically holding there until they scored. I don't think you can. I
That
don't
seems
think
like you're
you
not
can-
allowed to do that.
I don't think you can challenge goalie interference anymore either. I think they took that away. You could challenge goalie interference last year, but you can't do this year. Chris Janke coming in saying, I'm doing my best impersonation. Max Headroom. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea. Do you know what that is?
Nope.
I'm going to
I
have to
don't.
Google this.
I'm
I'm going to
Googling
Google
it
this.
right now.
While I Google this, or I guess you can Google it, for time's sake, let's talk about some guys in the later rounds that we like.
Yep.
I'm going to start with Patrick Jones. I think Patrick
Love
Jones is a guy
Patrick
who,
Jones. Yep.
I know he had a bad Senior Bowl, and even Rashad Weaver too, his teammate at Pitt. I think either of those guys in the 4th or the 5th round. I know we don't have a 4th round pick right now, but either of those guys in the 4th or the 5th round, if they're there and we can, get our hands on them, I would be thrilled with those two guys from Pitt. Dave Myers came in and said Phillips might slip into the 20s, being Jalen Phillips. I wouldn't trade up for a guy with that history of concussions. I'd take him at 30. I wouldn't trade up capital for him.
Right.
Andrew Miller comes in and says Jonathan Cooper from OSU. Very much, yeah, and I do apologize for my camera today. I was stuck at work, so I have to be using my work computer. But thankfully, my audio is still working, so I do apologize for the video. Andrew Miller says Cooper from OSU. I do like Jonathan Cooper, but to me, what
He
struggles against the run, he's a really good pass rusher.
Yeah, I mean, and he's not lengthy either. He's only like 6'2", so it's like he would really be just like a situational pass rusher to me. So yeah, maybe if you're gonna go all out on like trying to shore up the edge, and you think maybe Cooper's gonna be a special teamer, maybe even a strong side linebacker, potentially, then yeah, I've kind of cooled on Cooper. I'm kind of avoiding him now in some of these drafts just because, like, to me, there's guys with better upside than him.
I've seen that meme before. I've seen him in memes before.
Max
So that
Headroom?
is interesting. It's the hair, though. I guess I need to bleach the hair if I want to go full.
So
Max Headroom.
So here's the first real big shocker, I guess, of the night with the SIS stuff, because we talk about that a lot. They have Patrick Jones ranked 12th out of all the edge rushers, which is pretty good for him. Rashad Weaver, they have ranked 4th of all the edge
I like
rushers.
Rashad Weaver.
Yeah,
I like him.
I do too. I mean, 17 sacks, 34 tackles for loss in 3 years. It seems like he's like a lower cost, like higher upside version of baby Patrick Jones. You know, he had the knee injury in 2019, but he came back to be productive in 2020 he had 14 tackles for loss and 7.5 sacks last year. On SIS's total points metric, which is basically the metric they use where they take the expected points framework and then basically give you a value grade on whether or not you were involved in the play. He had the highest total points of any edge player. So I think there's a lot of upside with Rashad Weaver. And honestly, like, I'm almost kind of like coming around to like a guy like Rashad Weaver over a Peyton Turner. I'm like, I really am. Like, I would consider taking Rashad Weaver over Peyton Turner.
Someone mentioned Cameron Sample in the comment section as well. I like Cameron Sample, about 275. You're not going to get, I don't think you're going to get much of a pass rush upside out of Cameron Sample. Very much a bull rusher. But he's a solid rotational defensive end. So if he's sitting there in the 5th round, Cameron Sample's not someone.
He's a guy. Yeah, he's a guy that if you're like want the guy that can flex inside, he'd be a guy that maybe you'd be interested in. Like Peyton Turner can flex inside, a guy like that. Sample can flex inside with that size, and he's done so. So
we just signed a guy who very much fits this athletic profile, but I will once again say that Chauncey Goldstein is one of my favorite players in this draft.
I like Chauncey Goldstein.
University of Iowa. He can do 3-tech. He can play the edge. He's really good at he can play the edge. He's really good at setting the edge. I'm just a huge fan of Chauncey Goldstein. I don't think you'll see a better technician or a better fundamental football player in this draft than Chauncey Goldstein. Huge fan of his. And somebody also mentioned Chris Rumpf, who's your guy. So I'm going to let you take Chris Rumpf. Because he could fit in the side try-on mold of a guy who could play a little bit strong side. And then, who knows? Maybe you draft Chris Rumpf because he's sitting there later, and you try to even make him an off the ball linebacker, a strong side linebacker. You try to teach him those linebacker skills, even though he didn't do much of it at Duke.
Didn't do much of that at Duke. He was really more of just a pure pass rusher at Duke, but they did use him in multiple spots to rush from at Duke. We talked about Jordan Smith and Tehran Jackson having high pressure percentages of their team. Rumph was 4th highest in there, so he had 28% of his entire team's pressure rate. Undersized, but again, he could be a designated pass. He'd be a designated pass rusher. Look, they have him. Like SIS has Rumph ranked as their 15th highest edge, which is higher than a lot of other outlets I've seen. I know the Draft Network isn't as high on him. I think PFF is a little bit higher on Rumph than Draft Network is from what I've seen. But again, if you're talking day 3 and maybe you've already went out and you've got in like a, I don't know, let's say you went and got a Jalen Phillips in round 1 and Chris Rumph is sitting there and you have those 2 5th-round picks and you want to double up on edge. I wouldn't mind doubling up on edge and kind of getting a guy that's not in the same mold as a Phillips, more of like a hybrid-y type guy, and pairing him with a Phillips from a draft perspective, so you have a little bit of different characteristics. I'd be fine with that. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, like to pair him with a pure, like a Boogie Basham or like you mentioned, Jalen Phillips would be great.
Yeah.
Another guy at Duke, Victor Demukaj. He's a guy.
Yeah.
I'm torn on him because I like him, but something bugs me about him. What are your thoughts on him?
He kind of reminds me like of a lesser version of a Patrick Jones, like very similar
to Mike
size.
Love.
Yeah, I mean, he has 16 sacks over his last 2 years. He's 265, but he's only 6'2", so he does not like super lengthy, but he's a 4-year starter with a lot of experience. I mean, he kind of reminds me of like a poor man's AJ Epinesa, honestly. Like he just seems like he doesn't know what he wants to be. Does he want to be a speed guy? Does he want to be a power guy? In watching some of his tape, it seems like he'd be better suited to be more of a speed guy, but I don't know. Like I think he needs to figure out what he wants to be, or maybe the team that picks him needs to figure out what they want him to be. But I think he's got physical tools. I think he's like that guy that's all around okay in sort of everything, but he's not like spectacular in anything.
Yeah, I said he reminds me of Mike Love a little bit. I didn't mean like physically, because Mike Love is a bigger guy at 6'6", and obviously Victor's 6'2". But I mean like a guy who's just like a number 4 D end in a rotation. Like I just feel like that's going to be his niche in the NFL. His niche in the NFL is just going to be, the number 4, number 5 defensive end, comes in, gets 1 or 2 sacks a year, has a 5-6 year NFL career, and then he's done. Like I don't see much of a ceiling for him. I could be wrong, but
the ceiling's Rumph on that of those 2 guys from Duke, right? I mean, the ceiling is Rumph, son of a coach. Like you feel more comfortable if you're going for ceiling guys that you would want to take a Rumph over a Victor.
One last guy in the 4th to 5th round range I want to talk about was Dayo Adiabingo from Vanderbilt. Another guy, we got F.A. Obata, so it makes me question whether that's the type of end we're going for. This is a guy who's got 3 technique, edge, flex, really good, stout against the run. He's a power player. I'm a really big fan of his and what he did at Vanderbilt. I've been high on him for a lot of the process, but again, as I started to see who the Bills were looking at, and as the Bills signed F.A. Obata, like he sort of slipped to the back of my mind, but he's still a guy that I really enjoyed, reading up on as part of this draft class.
Yeah, and for me, my late round guy, I'll go even further because we've pretty much talked about everybody. A really kind of late round guy, maybe borderline UDFA guy that I think people should maybe take a look at is William Bradley King. He was at Baylor. He was a transfer from Arkansas State. He had 24 tackles for loss, 14.5 sacks, 3 seasons at Arkansas State. Had 5.5 TFL, 3.5 sacks last year at Baylor. Great hands, good first step, football IQ, high motor, got things you're looking for. Played with his hand in the ground at Baylor, so he is comfortable playing in a 4-3, even though many maybe would look at him as a 3-4. Again, another guy, like you said, like maybe he's like that rotational 4th defensive end, but I wouldn't mind taken a look at William Bradley King as a UDFA, as a guy who kind of improved and went to a bigger program his final year playing.
Yeah, just a couple other names to round this thing out. Chris Jenke comes in and says, Tehran Jackson, the love child of Tehran Johnson and Dane Jackson.
I like him.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He had the highest pressure share of any player in the draft. And we didn't even talk about him, but this guy was like a production machine at Coastal.
Yeah, and I will be sitting down with him on Saturday afternoon for an interview as well. So
they have him as number 19, so they have him pretty decently high in SIS. That guy.
Find out on Saturday if he's talked to the Bills. So
yes, please. I like him a lot. He's another guy where it's like if you went for an Osai early, right, or someone like that, and then you went for a Tehran Jackson late, that would be a nice pairing to me.
Yeah, and just the last few names here: Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa, Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame, and also Adakupo Ojanarji.
Hey, we got someone who knows who William Bradley King is. How about that? Nathan says, I work for Baylor, and I can say William Bradley King is a hardworking guy. Yeah, I mean, he was a transfer, so I imagine he had to kind of prove himself. Randy says, who doesn't know about Billy Brad? He's on the come up. Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I hadn't heard anyone talk about him yet, but so I looked into him today, and I liked what I saw, so we'll see.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring Kendall back here, and we're also going to start powering up the mock draft machine. So Kendall, give us your thoughts on the edge class. If the Buffalo Bills took a defensive end at 30, who would you want it to be?
If they took one at 30, I would want one of the higher ceiling guys, like Phillips or Away. I think it's funny because Bobby put out what he put out today about Phillips, and I think he's right to an extent. Like it's very sketchy to draft someone like that at 30, but the talent is undeniable. He's a 5-star recruit. He has an unbelievably high motor, extremely active hands, loves to get in on every tackle. He can do everything, but I don't know. It is risky to an extent. I think if he's there at 30, it's really tough to pass on him. The thing that I think is the real narrative about who we get in this edge class is, are we going to get the bendy guy or are we going to get the power rusher? Because we don't really know.
Get both. Get one of each.
We really could, because we don't really have any clear-cut future edge rushers for this team past this year. It's Jerry Hughes, it's Mario Addison and Epinesa, but behind that it's kind of like, we're just hoping some guys develop here and there, but we have no guarantees.
Not a pure pass rusher. Like Epinesa, that's not his game. I mean, so who is that guy after Jerry Hughes is gone? Like that player's not on the roster right now.
Yeah.
So
anyway, as we get into this mock draft, gentlemen, can I make a decree for this mock draft?
Okay.
I want to trade back.
Okay, we can do
that.
We haven't done that yet, I don't think.
So I want us to have 2 picks in the second round, and I want us to try to get 2 picks in the third round. Let's get risky here. I don't care if we have to trade every other pick, and we only have 4 picks total in this draft. That's what I want to get out of this mock today.
You don't want to trade 2 years worth of draft picks for Kyle Pitts?
Listen, it was early in the morning. I was still on the sauce. It was a mistake, right?
Nah, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time because some people probably thought you were being serious online.
No one's ever serious on the internet. All right. Cormo is gone. Man, we could have had Owosu in the 20s. Quiddy and
Moreg. Oh, Moreg. I love Moreg.
That's okay. Listen.
Who do you want to trade with? Bengals? Okay.
We have the Bengals. We have the Cowboys. We have the Jaguars.
I think before we make a trade, I think we have to talk about this talking point because Etienne is the highest person on this draft board, and I'm sure a lot of people are saying, why the hell aren't we drafting Etienne? Do you guys think – I mean, I'm with you. I think his concern of lateral movement is a real thing, and he's just straight north and south speed. But I want to know what you guys think about how the Breida signing impacts drafting Etienne. Because for me, I think he's off the board because we signed Etienne.
I don't think
Breida.
I don't think he's off the board because he signed Breida. And obviously, I'm being hyperbolic when I say he sucks. He's still one of the top, 3-4 running backs in this class, in my opinion. But he has a trait you cannot teach on this running that fast at his size. But I look at this offense and I look at what it's all about, and I'm like, do we need an elite running back in this offense for it to function? Like, if Travis Etienne is some elite running back, aren't we holding him back by bringing him to Buffalo? Like, is he going to get enough touches here to be effective, to be that workhorse back? I just don't see the point of having a workhorse back on this team. Give me Matt Breida, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss competing on the daily, on the regular, to try to be the two guys who are active. And you get your speed with Breida, and you get your power with the other two, and you get your contact balance with the other two. I just don't get it. Like, I just don't know if we want to invest that much in. You're gonna have to use the second of the fourth round picks.
No,
38.
I agree with what you're saying, though. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Bengals.
Bengals? What do the Bengals want?
Well, I'm saying I think we can get.
Try to swap threes and see what happens.
I think we can get this deal if we want it.
All right, try
38 and 111.
I don't think they're going to accept it.
Yeah.
Wow, they did. Where'd you look at that?
Again, according to the draft value chart, that's actually in the Bengals' favor. That trade.
Oh, we can get back up into the first round for just a fifth round pick.
And a seventh. I can take that seventh out.
Take the seventh out. See what happens. Look, we're wheeling and dealing, baby.
Yeah, we can do that if you want.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm with it.
You're moving up 6 spots if you want. I mean, is that worth it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we still have a fifth too.
All right, there you go.
We're wheeling and dealing.
And Etienne and Morig are still on the board. Farley's on the board. Zaven Collins is on the board. Oh God, Levi will be the pick in real life, and I will kill myself.
Wyatt Davis.
Yeah, I'd be very upset.
Okay, do we take Etienne here? I don't know, because we have that extra pick to play with. Now we have the extra pick to play with.
I would
go Farley.
Randy's gonna unsubscribe if we pick Etienne. He says, "Have you made a pick yet?" No, not yet. We haven't.
Let's do Caleb Farley. Let's do Caleb Farley.
All right, let's do that. I like it.
We'll make Bobby happy. Sarcastic.
We don't want to go really out of the box and go with Morig. All right, fine. Go all right.
ATM went to the Jets.
That's annoying.
So we went with Caleb Farley. So now we're probably going to be – I would like to trade up if someone's going to offer us a trade up here.
All right. I just paused it. Well, not with the Dolphins, but pause it with Washington.
I would wait for someone to come to us. Wait for someone to come to us. I think it'll happen.
We're only 10 picks away, and there's still –
it's not the thing. Oh, we took Caleb Farley. Never mind. Levi O's gone. Thank God.
All right. I paused it at 58. It's only 3 picks ahead of us, but Osai is on the board.
See, I don't think it's smart to make this trade because you have Perkins, Osai, and Tryon. Yeah, all three Perkins, Osai, and Tryon are on the board. We might as well just wait.
We'll take Tryon with the next pick. Yeah, take Tryon.
All right. I mean, all 3 guys.
I think that's what the Bills will take is Tryon.
I think so too. But what would you guys do? Would you go Perkins, Osai over Tryon here?
I'd take Dickerson, but that would be the all-injury draft.
I take Basham.
Basham is still there. I could go with any of those top 5 edge guys. I think are all good values in the second round.
For me, it would be either Osai or Basham. I don't know who's on your guys' short list. Those would be the 2 for me that I would take.
I would take Boogie, but I want to try to stay realistic to what I think the Bills would do. So I would take Tryon.
Everyone in the comments says Osai. Should we make the comment section happy?
If they want Osai, go with Osai.
Yeah, I can't see the comment section right now, so I do apologize to the comment section.
Yes.
We had like
I had to go
we had
full
like
screen.
we had like 5 people say Osai except for Randy said Basham.
I mean, we've done Basham so
Hey,
many
maybe
times.
Basham will be there in the 3rd round.
Double edge.
Double-edged sword. That should be the name of that mock. If we
Here we go. Take that deal.
All
I
right.
want to. Oh no, take the 7th off and take that deal. Let's get rid of our 5ths. That's what Brandon Bean's going to do. That is
Yeah.
exactly what Brandon Bean's going to do. He's going to
What
use
if I
those
make
5ths.
it maybe let me make it no, they want the 5th.
Nope.
Okay.
They want the 5th.
Should we do it? Should we do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what Brandon Bean's going to do. I think he's going to use those 5ths as chips to move up.
All right. Basham's on the
So-
board.
We have
Oh,
we've taken Caleb Farley and Joseph Osai. Tight end. Go to see the tight end room. See what the tight end room's got.
Hunter
Hunter
Long's
Long.
out there.
Oh, Hunter Long.
That's nice. Personally,
good.
I would be targeting an interior offensive lineman here, but
Ooh.
Hunter Long is
Whoa,
interesting.
Quinn Miners.
Quinn's available.
Aaron
Jackson
Banks a
Harmon
little
is
bit.
available.
Aaron Banks a little bit later. Aaron Banks a little bit later.
I
Yeah, but
know,
when's a
Aaron-
little bit later for us? We just traded up.
We have 4th round.
We have a 4th rounder now.
Yeah, but that's like, what, 20, 30 picks away?
You can get
I
Sidarius
even
Hutcherson in
more.
this case.
I would maybe get wild here and take Boogie.
You really want this.
I know.
I don't hate it either. I really don't.
I would say Hunter Long. I would say Hunter Long or Quinn
Real-
Miners. But
Yeah, realistically, I'd probably say
left
Hunter
the tackle?
Long. I'd probably say Hunter Long, Jackson Carmen, or
ooh, Jackson Carmen's got that
Miners.
inside outside flex.
Yeah, he's there. He's there.
Ben Cleveland took a picture with his balls out at the lake.
Yeah,
Great time.
I saw you.
That was definitely his nutsack. I don't care what anyone says.
I have no idea.
Randy
It's,
says
it's
Basham
too
bust.
obscure.
Oh, Spencer Brown.
Yeah, Spencer Brown's available. Trey Smith is available.
There aren't any overwhelmingly obvious comments. Trey Smith is getting some love.
Quinn's getting some love. Mineras, that is. He's a fan favorite already.
Yeah, he really is.
I
But we could
almost
probably get Aaron Banks in the 4th, honestly.
if this is the last chance to take
Or
a tight
can-
end unless
or-
we want to take,
Yeah, that's true. Do we want
unless we want to take Paul John. Unless we want to take Paul John late.
I'd be
almost
okay with
wouldn't mind
Hunter
going-
Long here.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Hunter Long as well.
Okay. I guess if that's what you guys want.
No. What do you want, Dave? Come on.
What do you
What
think,
is
Dave?
it? Don't
I
just
would
submit here.
I if it was me, it would come down to either Carmen or Basham. But again, because
Can
I feel
we-
like if you
Can we audible and call Quinn Minears or Spencer
Yeah.
Brown?
yeah.
What would you get behind, Kenna? Would you get behind a Spencer Brown or a Quinn Minears here?
I would get more behind Meniere's.
All right, let's go Meniere's. Want to go Meniere's?
Let's risk it for that biscuit, baby.
All right.
He would be instant favorite in Bills Mafia.
I hope he pans out no matter where he gets drafted. I really, yeah, of course, barring any AFC East team, but I really do hope he pans out.
All right. I don't
Take
know
it.
that we're
Take it.
No,
Nope,
wait,
do
what
it.
is this?
Do it. Take it.
That's not bad at all. Yeah, we should.
Take it.
Let me
Take
see if I
it.
can make it a 7th instead.
I was gonna say
Nope.
that. No.
Nope.
Maybe we
Take it.
can get a 6 back from him. Nope. Oh my
Nope.
god.
Take it.
All right.
Take it. This
Oh
is
my
what
gosh.
Brandon Bean does.
We're getting Basham
All right.
here. He's available.
Tackle. Offensive tackle or tight end. What are we seeing here? Spencer Brown is
Hunter
still there.
Long. Hunter
Hunter
Long.
Long is still there.
Take him.
Who,
Hunter Long
Long?
or Spencer Brown, baby.
We can go Hunter Long this time because I know you guys really want him. All right, we'll go Hunter
This is
Long.
an odd draft, but I'm
It is.
oddly okay with it.
Very against the grain for our conventional drafts, but
My OCD is freaking out by all the position switches here. Corner to edge, to interior to tackle. I'm always a fan of like taking two guys at the same position.
Group hug for Randy. He's so mad. He's so mad.
Who did he want? Oh, he
I
wanted,
bet.
he wanted Boogie.
I mean, look, it is spicy. It's look, look, how many mock drafts have you all seen over the last like 3 weeks? Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee you have not seen one that looks like this.
Yeah,
That's all. That's what I'm saying.
we got to keep it fresh. What I will
we
say
don't-
for Randy is that I've really been warming up to Sidarius Hutcherson because I think he gives that flex to play tackle and guard, which is really attractive. Because for Meniere's, it's like, okay, yeah, he can play center and guard, but we have Feliciano to do that. We know he might be gone next year, but I'd rather for this year know that we have someone that can play guard and tackle.
Yeah, I mean, Hutcherson was in my very first mock draft Monday I did last Monday. Ton of experience, good in the run game, played in the SEC. I think, South Carolina, the program is in great shape, but they do put guys into the NFL. I think that Sidarius would be a great pick for us. Tito says they're all just as realistic as this. Yeah, it's true. Nobody knows what the hell is actually going to happen.
Yeah,
the fact of the matter is, like, you can do 1,000 mocks and it's never going to go how the real thing's going to go. It just it's wild. The draft is just so wild.
Stevens has moved up the TDN list here. He's not a UDFA anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder if they moved up Avery Williams. Let's see.
Nope. He's still 412.
But yeah, he randomly went in like the 6th round or something like that.
I can get behind Avery with our last pick.
I could too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say either a specialist like a kick returner like that or a safety.
Darren Hall or Dean Marlowe. Darren Hall.
If Darren Hall or like DeMar Hamlin are available, I'd be on board for taking.
Yeah, I think we should look at one of those types of guys.
This is our last pick, guys.
Darren Hall is available.
Darren Hall.
All right, so we got Darren Hall's available. Forrest Merrill, who's one of my favorites at IDL.
We need a tackle. We would need a tackle.
I got to look into this Forrest Merrill you keep hyping up.
Yeah, I don't really.
Yeah, I don't like any of those.
Yeah, people like Alert Jackson, but I don't really like him. I don't know
what quarterbacks are left. I read an article today that said Kellen Mond's gonna be a 1st-round draft pick.
I know Chris Sims really likes him, whatever that's worth.
All right.
Marco Wilson tested out of this world.
SIS has Marco Wilson as like their number 5 corner.
That's wow. That's high praise.
Yeah.
I like Darren Hall maybe here.
I do too.
Tehran Jackson to pair with Osai. I like Forrest Merrill, obviously. You guys know that already.
Hold on. I'm on the Darren Hall train here.
Okay.
I agree.
I can get behind that.
The new Dean Marlowe, Darren Hall.
I'm sure the Bills will just re-sign Marlowe after we make this pick, but
the Bills did meet with him. I'm curious to see where they had Darren Hall ranked before we.
I'm curious to see how they ranked him as a position. If they ranked him as a good,
they have him as a safety. Let me see what they have him as. Let's see. They have him. No, actually, they have him as a corner, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
They'll probably grade him as a slot corner then.
They've got him as. Do they have him as a corner?
Yeah, Andrew Naquan was gone. Jacoby was gone as well. He's moved way up. He's moved way up the TDN boards here.
Well, listen to this. They have Darren Hall ranked as the 11th best corner. SIS does.
Ooh, interesting.
He's a guy who could see his name go in like the 4th or 5th round. It wouldn't shock me.
Speed, IQ, and overall coverage ability. See plenty of steps at the next level, but with some development, consistent ball skills, and press man ability, he could become a solid 3-down starter. Hall best projects as a number 3 corner in a zone coverage scheme where he could use his skills to play inside and out. Speed and willingness to play physical makes him a movable piece to play over tight ends. This guy sounds like a freaking mini big nickel to me.
This guy sounds like the buff. This guy sounds like Sean.
He's the mini nickel. He's the mini nickel, is what he is.
He sounds like Sean McDermott's wet dreams, according to
Oh my god! All right, so here's the draft, boys.
I'm not in a school saying that at all. Don't worry.
People are upset we didn't take. People are upset we didn't take Shelvin. I mean, look, everyone and their mom has taken Shelvin in these mock drafts. It's like, that's why like the last couple I've done, I'm taking McNeil, or I take Tonga later, or I take like Forrest Merrill late, someone like that.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like, I love the defensive tackles in this draft. I love Shelvin. I love Marvin Wilson. I love Aleem McNeil. Like, you know me. Like, I love these IDLs. I want the big fat dudes. I can't picture the Buffalo Bills taking one. I fail to Justin Zimmer, Harrison Phillips, Vernon Butler, Ed Oliver, Starlo Lele. Like, we getting rid of Harry? Are we giving up on Zimmer? Like,
yeah,
we cutting Vernon Butler after he restructured. You can't cut Star. Like, yeah. I just like. Don't
I took Tyrell in my mock that I did today, and he's a massive guy. But like again, that means that likely Justin Zimmer or Harrison Phillips are gone, right? I mean, that's probably.
I love and Sheldon Cole says think about the future. That's great, but like, you can't put him on the practice squad. Like, I just struggle. I'm struggling to envision a place for a defense. I'll be happy if we take one because I love this IDL class. Someone says get rid of Butler. Maybe you do get rid of Butler.
Maybe. What happens if Vernon Butler take Forrest Merrill and put him on the practice squad?
What happens if Vernon Butler shows up? What happens if Vernon Butler shows up and he's good? And Randy says can't read it on my phone. Who'd you take with the last pick? We took Darren Hall. So we went Caleb Farley, Joseph Osai, Quinn Meniers, Hunter Long, Darren Hall.
And we had 4 picks in the top 100. Do you guys think that we made the best use of those 4 picks in the top 100?
Yeah, I'm going to say they're probably going to go no.
But that's the point, though. We gave ourselves the best chance at quality picks. And I think that's what Bean is going to do.
Brandon Bean would do the best with them. Brandon Bean would use them wisely.
Yeah, I don't think we did the best with them, but I think that based on what we had available, we tried to work with it. So anyway, that's
Randy
what we got.
Randy thinks the draft is mostly trash, but Dave comes in and says he loves this draft, so that makes it cancels out.
You're never gonna please everyone. You're never gonna please. Never. I mean, unless we drafted every player from South Carolina, we probably and Basham. We draft J.C. Horn, Sidarius Hutcherson, Shi Smith, and Basham. Like then Randy would like to draft.
I think that we should do our next draft should be a Randy draft where we aim to please Randy. Like that's our goal.
Trade up for J.C. Horn. Trade back. Make sure we get all those like 5th round picks. Maybe some 3rd and 4th in there for Mukuamu.
We're gonna have like J.C. Horn at pick like 17, and then our next pick's gonna be pick like 161.
And it's gonna be for Mukuamu or Hutcherson
or
Smith.
At least you didn't trade 2 whole drafts for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm pretty sure that they are going to turn the lights out of my establishment that I'm in. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.